Hello, and welcome to this podcast on gamification of workplace learning, where we are talking to leaders and experts to get their insights and learn from their experiences. Today, my guest is Mun Choong Lam, or Munch, as he is popularly called. Munch is the founder and CEO of Self-Driven Enterprise Singapore. Self-Driven provides HR and talent management solutions through gamified SaaS solutions. Munch has earlier been a director at Netium in Malaysia and HP in Singapore. With that very brief intro, let's invite Munch to this podcast. Munch, very welcome.
Hey, Amit. Hi to you too. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak.
Great. Munch, why don't we start with learning a little bit about you? What's your journey been like, and what do you focus on today? And I'll be very keen to learn more about your business, Self-Driven.
Okay. So, well, let me just start by saying I grew up in Malaysia, and I think since very young I was a geek, if you like. So somehow I started learning software development and programming when I was 12.
Mhm.
And it was always my dream since I was very young to say I want to learn programming because I want to build my own computer game, you know. Because I think at the early days of the PCs, I think one of the things that got me interested into programming was actually the kind of computer games that were available during that time. So I think that's how I started with this journey of gamification by exposing myself or getting myself interested in playing games myself.
Hmm.
Then I think I got into the university and learned computer engineering, and after that, subsequently, started my career as a system analyst, database administrator, pretty much in the realms of software development. But most of the time, we were basically in the business of providing business software to clients. So I kind of left the realm of games and gamification for a while until the year 2012 when I was in my second startup where we started to support actually clients in a gaming platform. So what happened then was business was growing rapidly, and as a result, we have to actually grew our team fairly rapidly as well to 300 to 400 people. And in that process, we learned that it's not easy to engage and retain talent, especially software engineers, system engineers, and so on and so forth. We have to go out there and compete for talent with some of the best companies in the world, such as Google and Facebook, Microsoft, IBM, and all that. And at that point in time, I was asking myself, if employees, good team members, and talent are so important to us, probably in our business, they are more important than customers. Why can't we engage them and treat them like our best customers?
Mhm.
So that's when the whole idea of loyalty, rewards, and gamification come into play. We feel that we started experimenting with gamification
Hmm.
to engage employees, by starting with giving regular challenges to our employees, in the area of their well-being, in the area of collaboration, in the area of performance. And then based on how well they have done, they were given badges and points. And then with that, they are able to exchange the badges and points with some prizes and rewards that we regularly give out to employees. And when we did that, we find that I think the result were improved beyond our expectations. Being an IT company, we track everything that we do, on all our systems, and we're able to see that employee productivity output has gone up by 250%.
Wow.
Yes. We're able to see that client satisfaction rating has gone up, and we're able to see software quality has gone up by a huge margin, and we have team-based competition in the company, and we realize everybody is trying harder, and so what we did was we kind of did user research on our own employees and we went to ask every team. We said, you seem to be trying harder and doing better this year compared to last year. What makes you do that? Right? So we got very interesting answers. We got half of the team we talked to said that, oh, we are doing better because we can see our name on the leaderboard. We want to be on top of the leaderboard because we believe we are the best. Right? And the other half of the team gave us a different answer. They said, okay, there is a leaderboard. We are trying harder because we don't want to be last. So as a result, everybody in the company improved.
Yeah.
Right? So that is the first time when we experienced the power of gamification in changing behavior, in improving productivity.
Excellent. And so, one that you used gamification as the starting point was really to retain employees and engage them better because you were losing them. And you got added benefits in terms of productivity, in terms of customer satisfaction, quality, everything. Typically, the naysayers of gamification would find, and we are getting deep into that quickly, but some of this is not sustainable. So were you able to sustain it over a period of time? That will be very interesting for people to know.
Yeah, I think definitely there are naysayers and skeptics of gamification. And in truth, I think we have talked to gamification practitioners. There are people who have been researching and practicing in this space over the last 10 over years. And I think we have seen data that says gamification was very hot in the early 2010s, where I think a lot of corporates were experimenting on gamification. They invested in gamification of learning and productivity and marketing and and this and that. And I think the research have come back and said that, well, maybe 70-80% of the gamification projects fail, so to speak. But if you are a software practitioner, you will also realize the same statistics apply for a lot of new technologies, like CRM. So it isn't surprising that there is a high failure rate, and it can be explained by, number one, I think when there's innovation and technology, at the beginning, at its introduction, they tend to be overhyped, like Bitcoin, for example, right? So I think when a new thing like gamification was introduced, people tend to overestimate the ease of doing it and the benefit that comes from it. Right? And expectations are higher than reality, if you like. And therefore, as a result, you experience a lot of failures. I think that's one explanation of why people say gamification is not sustainable. But the good news is that I think market research analyst Gartner essentially have, in their research on technology hype cycle, has said that gamification has gone through this hype cycle and now it's reaching mainstream. What that essentially means is that I think the market as a whole now has a lot more experience around experimenting, implementing with gamification. I think one difference is that we are all better at it now, right? We learn from experience, we learn from mistakes and failure. The other thing is also through this learning, we now have more realistic expectations of what gamification can do for us. Gamification isn't a silver bullet that can solve all problems you throw at it. So I would say anyone trying gamification is now will be able to see a higher chance of success because we have all benefited from the experience in the last 10 years or so. Yeah. And I think the other thing I would say is that why people say you can't sustain gamification is definitely with a lot of new technology or anything novel, anything new, that people will always be interested about it at the beginning, right? Something new, everybody is willing to try it at least once.
Correct.
I think what would I think everyone who want to try gamification need to think about beyond just providing fun or a good user experience. You know, so I think there is a clear difference between gamification and games, and sometimes gamification fail because people think gamification is just another form of games, right? And it's a special effect that matters, you know. But I think my philosophy or our philosophy is that when you talk about gamification at the workplace, I think user experience matters, but equally important is really at the end of the day, how are we making the life of the user or the employee better? You know, what did we make their job better? Did we help them grow? Did we help them improve in any way? If the user experience the benefit and not just the fun,
Yeah.
then it is more likely that they will go back and do it again.
Hmm. So obviously, what we're looking at is there is an end objective, which is improving something, changing something, and there is a process to reach there. The process we can make more fun, but just making the process fun is not going to be long lasting if the end result is not being achieved.
Yeah, yeah.
Fantastic. That's a great perspective, Munch. Before we lose that, and I'll come back to this, but I also wanted to understand a little bit about self-driven itself. What do you do over there, and what are you, providing to businesses in this area?
Right. So self-driven, I think we started the company with a very strong focus around gamification because we have experienced the benefit. We said, okay, let us bottle the magic in a bottle. Let's put the magic in the bottle and let's share the magic. And that's the whole reason why we built this company, right? And when we go out there and we basically try to work with clients in different industries, trying to solve different problems, we have again went through the learning curve of experiencing what works and what doesn't. And through that process, we if you like, we find the magic sauce, so that we know we can ensure that we are able to deliver the outcomes or the benefits in a more consistent way.
Hmm.
So what do we really do? Okay, we are an employee experience platform
Mhm.
that employs gamification and data analytics and AI, machine learning, and digital nudges to basically make everyday experience of employees better,
Mhm.
right? So that everyday experience could involve culture, collaboration, well-being, productivity, and learning.
Mhm.
Right. So our maybe if you like our short slogan would be, if we can gamify everything, we would, but we always keep our eyes on the prize to say that when we try to go out there and gamify something, there has to be a clear outcome that we want to achieve. And that's how we start everything we do with our clients.
Fantastic. That's very interesting, Munch, and thanks for sharing that.
Mm.
All right, so we kind of covered what I wanted to ask you next in some bit. So a little bit of flavor you've already possibly shared, but if you were to go specific on what is the role that you see gamification can play in workplace learning, what is really that makes it so compelling?
Right. Okay. I would start by saying why through my own learning and research on gamification, We started from experiencing how gamification work, but not understanding why it works.
Uh-huh.
Initially, we think, okay, maybe because it's fun,
Mm.
that's why people like it.
Mm.
But over time, we learn more than that. I think what we have learned is that gamification is really the encapsulation of a lot of um, positive psychology and human motivational theory and neuroscience. Certain game mechanics work because it it is basically supporting or propagating what we call positive psychology,
Mm.
or it's triggering human motivation. But the good thing about game designers, they have kind of bottled the magic, like I said. They have bottled human motivation into a formula, and it's called gamification or game mechanics. So I think that's something that we find is something that we always keep in mind when we are engaging clients and trying to make them successful.
Mm. So there's a lot of it that is going around gamification in our view, which is backed by either learning science or positive psychology, you know,
Right, right.
which really is powering a gamification, and hence it should be useful for learning as well, like it is for many other areas.
Hmm. So specifically for learning, I would say we have to start from the fundamentals, right? Like I said, the first thing we want to say is that gamification is not a silver bullet,
Mm.
right? If you want learning to be engaging, before you talk about gamification, you have to um, make sure that the fundamentals are right. Okay, the fundamentals will be number one: is the learning relevant to the job?
Hmm. Yeah,
Right? If the learning is not relevant to the job, then the learner will not experience the benefit,
true.
right? Unless it is learning for fun, learning as a hobby, that's different.
Yeah, yeah,
But I think most workplace learning is relevant to skills and competency and performance,
yeah.
right? So therefore, first thing I think L&D professional has to ensure when you design learning is that is learning relevant to the job,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes the L&D professional knows it, but they did not articulate it to the learners, and that has to be addressed.
Mhm.
It has to be obvious to the learner that the learning benefits them. Two is, I think the learning content has to be well designed,
Mhm.
right? So learning content is a bit like the script in a movie, right? If the script is terrible, no amount of special effects is going to save the movie, right? So then the last bit will be gamification of it. Gamification, when it comes to it, is really going to be almost like special effects,
Mm. Yeah.
right? So that where you're essentially packaging the movie in such a way that allows you to trigger positive human emotions, to engage your learners, to be more immersed in the learning, and take more out of the entire experience of learning, right? So like I said, we have to pay attention to the fundamentals, right? A is that it has to be relevant to your audience. B is, the content has to be good. Your learning instructions has to be clear. They have to be structured in a way that is easy to digest, easy to understand. And then you layer on top of it gamification, storytelling, narratives, game mechanics. Then you have a winner.
Yeah. Mm. So I captured three specific points that you mentioned. One is make it relevant, design it well, content is the king there, and then bells and whistles, if you may want to call it, or the special effects with gamification, but that really engages and motivates them to learn better through the program.
Right.
Uh, so if these are, possibly the ways that you think, gamification can be leveraged better for effective learning, Uh, would you have anything that you can share with us in terms of examples where something that you may have seen or done which have achieved some sort of a business result that you can share with us?
Right. So should we focus on learning and development or some other area?
If you have something from learning and development, that will be excellent. If
Right.
you want to bring something from other aspects, that's fine as well.
So I think I think, I think in the interest of the core audience, let's talk about learning and development.
Mhm.
So again, my background is that I'm not a trained HR professional. I'm not a trained L&D professional. I started out as a software engineer, but today I'm a business owner. I'm a CEO. So I think what mattered to me really always is that, if I'm a CEO as a business gamification or whatever, as a business owner, I want to make sure I see measurable outcomes and benefits out of it. So that's always the premise of how I look at
Mhm.
what we do at work. And when I look at something that is being done at work, and we do not get the outcome, very often we will go back and look at how we can rethink, relook the entire approach
Mhm.
to make it more effective. So coming to L&D, I think one of the things that I observe as a non-L&D practitioner is that I think very often a lot of companies are organizing or structuring L&D in the same way as how universities would teach students,
Mhm.
right? So you would have a syllabus for your learners to go through, and the syllabus is very structured, and there is only one way for you to complete the learning, and possibly the learning content or the modules tend to be quite monolithic or heavy, because that's how you learn in school. You have a gigantic chapter for you to learn something, or you have to go through an hour lecture to learn something. So very often in the workplace, learning is structured the same way. But if you were to understand gamification and human motivation and positive psychology, then there are certain things that we can tweak to make learning more engaging, right? I think first thing is, I think this whole idea of autonomy, for most human beings, if you're given the choice, you're more motivated, right? If say so, therefore, when learning is being structured along a syllabus, and there's a one size fit all approach from the onset, it is already less motivating.
Yeah. True.
So if you can structure learning in such a way where people can go in and they have a choice, I think almost certainly your level of engagement and the level of completion will go up. That's the first thing that I would say. Give learners autonomy
Mhm.
to decide what they want to learn and how they want to learn, right? Like in our case, anybody who comes to work will be presented with a list of different learning challenges or quests. Some of it is relevant to their work directly,
Mhm.
but it could be mandatory.
Yeah.
But we also have optional learning that is put side by side with them. To say, you have to learn A, but there are also other options for you to learn that is potentially relevant to you, or relevant for you to understand other job roles or whatever. But then the way you nudge or entice people to learn what is important or less important is that you kind of vary the level of rewards and recognition associated with it. So
Mhm.
you're basically giving choices to the employees or the learners, to say you have a choice. I can either do A, B, or C, but they come with different levels of rewards. Now you decide what you want to learn.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you want to climb a Mount Everest, or a shorter mountain, or just a hill? Is your choice. right? And typically in those situations, you will tend to get better engagement,
Mm.
right? So it probably goes against the more traditional way of running L&D.
True. So effectively, a person can choose how much, either based on time or their level of knowledge,
Yeah.
whatever it is, but they can choose what I want to do and how much I want to achieve, maybe in the next week or 2 weeks or month.
Yep, yep.
Hmm.
And I think the other thing that I also learned, again, coming from a very non-conventional background, not non-L&D background, I think I have also learned that because we hire many university graduates,
Hmm.
but in the process of helping our employees develop, um, we have also learned one thing, also through other research, that um, perhaps 80% of university graduates actually ended up studying something that they are not passionate about.
Hmm.
So as a result, um, they are from the onset less engaged, right? Take for example, maybe somebody decided to study accountancy.
Hmm.
Sometimes less because they are interested in the topic, but more because of, if you like, family pressure,
Yeah.
right? And especially in Asia and probably in India, for example,
Yes.
this happens a lot, right?
A lot.
But when they have graduated and they enter the workforce, well, by default, they will pursue accountancy as a career,
Hmm.
right? And but if they themselves are not passionate about the subject, and they felt that they are not very good at the subject, um, again, by default from the onset, they are less engaged. So if they go to an accountancy firm and they have been stuffed with a learning syllabus that is accountancy, so by default they're not engaged already, right? But if you're able to give them a sort of like a broader range of learning materials, then potentially as an employer, as a company, you are allowing your employees the chance to explore interests and careers, you know.
Yeah.
So A is a matter of you are giving them a choice, and you are allowing them maybe to or encouraging them, to spend 10% or a certain percentage of their time exploring non-core learnings,
Hmm.
which in the process they may end up discovering what they are really good or passionate at, and that will probably help them spark their interest in a different career path or a new career and so on. So I think that's another example where I think we have seen from experience happens quite a bit at the workplace.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
therefore, I think why I like about gamification and applying the concept of games in learning is, I think games, the learning through gamification allow us to be more human,
Hmm.
right? It
Hmm.
allows us to say, I have autonomy, I can make choices. It allows us to explore, you know. It allows us to either collaborate as a team or compete as competitors,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know, which is a motivation trigger for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Some people are just naturally competitive. It allows us to feel like we belong to a certain community or team. You know, people get very passionate about, they identify with certain teams, like the India cricket team or UK football team,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. You know, or the World Cup, for example. But those are, if you like, basic human needs of, we want to belong. We want to say that, we are involved in something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
And if you apply gamification well, you can trigger all those emotions and motivation, and make people more engaged, more productive. I give you an example of something that we did for a client.
Mhm.
one of our clients wanted to engage more of their employees to be completing self-directed learning. So they have invested
Mhm.
uh, huge amounts of money into LinkedIn Learning and Coursera and Udemy and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
Especially during the periods of COVID, they want to encourage employees to go and self-learn new skills. What they have found out was very little that actually happens, you know. But one of the things that we suggested to them to do is to kind of link the whole idea of self-learning to not just personal growth
Mhm.
or professional growth, but something that maybe a lot of employees care about. So they did if you like, a design thinking user research sort of thing, then they realized a lot of young employees really care about sustainability and the environment. So one of the things that we designed with them was actually a game where, okay, for every learning you complete, you're actually planting a tree in the system,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then come end of the year, the companies will look at how many trees were planted because you completed learning.
Mhm.
The company will actually um, make the donation to make sure those number of trees are planted,
Mhm.
and they will also get employees involved to go out there and plant those trees,
Mhm. That's
right?
fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. Giving them a bigger purpose to finish their learnings and be involved with that.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. I also liked something that you said, the gamification allows us to be more human and within that, compete and collaborate. I
Mm.
was also thinking at that time was it also allows us to be maybe make more mistakes.
That's
Nobody
right.
likes to make mistakes, but gamified solutions gives you that freedom to do a few of those and learn from those.
Yes, I agree with you absolutely.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So, Munch, another area that I normally get asked about, and we talk about that, is what is good gamification versus not so good gamification. And I'll add to that. Typically when people start with gamification, they would start with points, badges, and leaderboards. But some of the other people would think that's really something that's not true gamification. It's like adding a layer which is like a wrapper, which is not authentic and not, really useful over a long term. So, do you differentiate between good, bad, good, not so good, bad gamification?
Okay, I think that's a generic way to look at things. Definitely, there are gamification that works and gamification that doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have to go back to the fundamentals of why games are more engaging
Mm-hmm.
than
Mm-hmm.
why. I mean, the fundamental question I ask as a CEO is, why do my employees have to be paid to come to work, but they're willing to spend their hard-earned money on games?
Yeah. Yeah.
So so what can we learn from games? So I think the fundamental thing that I learned is that games are successful because games are designed with the user or the player at its center,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whereas work is not designed with the employee as its center.
Mm-hmm.
They are not the hero. They are just a cog in the wheel, right?
Yeah.
So if you want gamification to be successful, you want to do good gamification, I would say the essence or the core of it is really you have to be user centric.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just sugarcoat something, a process that you want employees to participate in, and then you slap points, badges, and leaderboards on it, and then you call it gamification. Because if employees, I mean, employees these days are very savvy, very smart. If they recognize that something like it's something that they don't see benefit in, it's not for them, but it's gamified, they will see through it. So I would almost want to say that those sort of gamification is in my words, candification, you know.
Mhm.
At the core of it is something that not what they want,
Yeah,
but we sugarcoat it so that it's more attractive to them. But I think we should not underestimate the audience. They are smart people. You know, if it's something that they don't see benefit in, they will see through it.
yeah, true.
Right. So it goes back to my statement to say, you know, you have to start from the benefit statement for your audience. How does it benefit them? If it doesn't benefit them, no amount of gamification will help, whether it's points, badges, or leaderboards.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. Hmm. Fantastic. Right. Munch, also, since you are now in the business of providing gamified solutions, you would have encountered this more than us about the challenges that exist for implementing gamification. There is obviously a perception of it being not very serious thing, but at the same time there could be others as well. What have you come across, and how do you handle those?
I think perceptions are changing,
Hmm.
um, in the sense that I think there are many things that we perceive about gamification that probably is wrong, right? Take for example, some people would say gamification is just for young people.
Hmm.
The,
Yeah.
the truth is that if you look at a game like Pokemon Go,
Hmm.
if you look at the demographics of Pokemon Go players, you realize most of them are middle-aged people, right? It's not that older people don't enjoy the game. You know,
Yeah.
I think it has to have specific meaning to them. You
Yeah.
know, I think middle-aged people play Pokemon Go, for example, or they're loyal to the game, even though the gameplay isn't fantastic.
Yeah.
It is number one. I think there is a sense of nostalgia. Right? The
True.
meaning. I think Pokemon Go reminds them of something they did that they enjoyed when they were younger,
Yeah.
right? And that kind of creates that sense of stickiness in them. And of course, the other game mechanics of also helps, right? Um, so I think first and foremost, I think games and gamification have become mainstream
Hmm.
thanks to the internet, thanks to the proliferation of smartphones and smart devices. So I speak as a games veteran, someone who played games since the 80s, where I think in the 80s, the whole idea of playing games or computer games is a niche activity. You know, you have to be a nerd with a PC to play computer games.
Right.
But these days, I think you know, almost every segment of the demographic enjoys some form of mobile games. You know, there could be some senior citizens who enjoy Candy Crush. You know, some middle-aged guy who enjoys Pokemon Go, and young people definitely. Game has become a mainstream activity and a mainstream hobby where when you talk about esports, you know, gamers are now celebrities who make millions as if they are Olympic athletes, right? So I think that the acceptance of gaming as a lifestyle and this, you know, the familiarity with how games work, it's out there.
Yeah.
You know, the audience is ready for gamification
Hmm.
at work, in my view, because they have been immersed in it outside work,
Yeah.
and it will be a crime for them to be very used to games and gamification in e-commerce, you know, in mobile games and so on and so forth. But then when they step into work, all of that disappears.
Yeah.
I think that would be a crime, right?
Right. No, absolutely. And I think it is something, and not just for games and gamification, but there are so many other technologies and experiences because of which the workplace has to adapt based on what your staff is already experiencing outside. Whether it is good quality animations or, systems that people experience. If you're experiencing a Facebook or a LinkedIn outside, you would not accept a very clunky LMS or a collaboration software inside. So, all of that has a bearing. Right. Manch, do you have any advice for L&D professionals who want to get started or who may have just started with gamification of their L&D initiatives?
Right. I would say it's more important to apply design thinking, to start the journey with design thinking,
Mhm.
right? To understand who are you trying to engage, what are their needs, and how do you serve their needs, um, before you go on and think about whether gamification is relevant in the context.
Mm.
I think as somebody who literally selling gamification, my advice is don't start with gamification.
Yeah.
Start with understanding the audience.
Yeah.
And I would say my second advice would really be perhaps for L&D professionals to also invest time in developing a better understanding of gamification. I think
Mhm.
there are some free resources for them to start with out there on the internet. There are certain companies and professional trainers like yourself who can at least get them up to speed on the basics of gamification. And I think for me personally, the key thing really is to understand the psychology behind why gamification works, so that you can, when you choose to do it, you can make good decisions around how to do it well. Gamification is about humans. It's not about technology. It's not about process. So understanding the fundamentals of what make humans tick is the key to making gamification work,
Mm.
right?
Fantastic.
So for every game mechanics out there, it can be broken down into, where it triggers human emotion and motivation and so on and so forth.
Hmm. Fantastic. That's very, very interesting and helpful. I know a lot of people may jump into a new topic uh, because they heard it in a conference or someone else is doing it. Let's do it, without applying enough thought. So that's very, very helpful. Thanks, Munch. Munch, it's been a very interesting conversation, and we've come to the end of it. Before we close, where should people find you? Is LinkedIn the best place to reach out to you if they have to?
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn is probably one of the best place to find me. Alternatively, if you want to know more about what we do, we have a YouTube channel
Mhm.
under Self-Driven Enterprise.
Mhm.
We also have our website, www.selfdriven.com, where you could find out more information about what we do and some of our client case studies as well. But I would say a good place to go to would be our YouTube channel, because almost on a weekly basis, we upload new contents about some of the webinars we're doing, our client case studies, or interesting learnings that we think our audience will benefit from.
Hmm. Fantastic. I'll also check out. I haven't checked out your YouTube channel, by the way. I've
Right.
definitely seen the
Please,
website.
please,
I will.
please.
Absolutely.
We hope you enjoy what we have put up in our YouTube.
Sure. Thank you, Munch. Munch, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thanks, Amit, for the opportunity, and let's try to really get more people to benefit from learning and applying gamification, especially in L&D.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like you said, perceptions are changing. The time is better than earlier, and I'm sure we'll be able to do that.
All right,
Thank you.
Amit, take care.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.